No, 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 she's going into the water again. The child turned. Her legs thrashed the blanket that held her down, bursting the safety pins that had attached it to the mattress. She sat up in her hot wetness and screamed, her body stiff, salt eyes frozen wide. When her lungs were exhausted of air, she gulped, and her face turned towards the curtained window, where there was only darkness. The uneven patter of her grandmother's feet on the staircase didn't abate the child's heaving. Then her grandmother was above her, bending, Nana's sour, mouldy smell enveloping her, easing her back down into the sheets, smothering her in pickle and oats and old sweat, and then the blanket over her again. But she's in the water, Nana! Hush, child. Your mother's on a boat at sea. Goodness sake, she's a fisherwoman. That's what she does. No, Nana, she's sinking. She's going down and down and down into the darkness. The child was pointing. The grandmother tracked her finger. The window. Beyond that, the sea. Yes, she has gone far out to sea, but her boat is strong and she will come back in time. In time? Don't you understand? Time is overrated. And you're not making sense, Sophia. Have you had a bad dream? Let me twirl your dream catcher for you. Hush, Nana, leave it. You're too late. She's on the water's bottom now. Ignoring the child's sleep-addled mutterings, her grandmother tucked her in, kissed her brow. She told you that she's carrying another child, didn't she? A brother or sister for you. Soon you won't be so lonely. Do you know babies love water? And before they are born, all babies live in water. Did your mother tell you that? Talking is overrated, Nana. Please be quiet. You make me laugh. Shall I sing you a song? People used to come from miles to hear me sing. The girl with the sea green eyes and a voice that can calm an ocean was my billing. Let me sing for you. You're going to anyway, Nana. Her grandmother chuckled. Yes, I'm going to sing anyway. And she sang, and the green dream catcher turned, and the child subsided into sleep. Her mother stayed on the bed a few minutes watching this strange child's lips shape noiseless words until her breathing steadied. Then she went over to the window, drew back the short, threadbare curtain and stared into the brewing black-grey. It was no easy place to do it, but from Folkestone, if you knew the waters, the banks, the submerged cliff lines, the tidal patterns, the troughs and middle currents, it was possible to go out there and catch fish. Hermione had advised the skipper a little further east into the deep, but the skipper worshipped his sonar, and she knew not to press him. There was a streak of the irrational to him, and when it flared, things got messy. Now she worked with the others to run the nets out. No easy task. Gill net fishing required a long lead-weighted net that could fall 90 fathoms to the bottom of the channel, and also patience, as with all fishing. She saw them as glints first, shards of light in the blackness. The midshipwoman swept a searchlight across and picked it out, an assemblage of planks and floats, a raft more than a boat. It was flimsy. The glints, she figured, were mobile phones being waved. It was not yet past the lurid orange marker ship that split French from English waters. Were they trying to reach their fishing boat? The Helena's gill net was dropped. They couldn't move towards them, nor could they move away. The skipper was frustrated about something and came to Hermione's aft by the shelter deck. The net had snagged in the deep. She swallowed an "I told you so," and her eyes flicked to the bobbing craft. "I saw it," the skipper said in response, "on the sonar, and I've called it in. There's a glut of these things. The Coast Guard will take over when they can." "Border force?" "Yes." "Why don't we do something? The swell is rising. They could founder any moment." "And lose the net? Cut it away so we can reach them?" "Yes." "The cost would finish us, all of us, with how it is at the moment." She looked into the murk again. Those lights. When she turned back, he was still there, silently pleading with her. She stayed quiet, forcing him to speak. He shouted through the spray, "Will you go down to free the net?" His voice was gruff, hating to ask, to acknowledge this thing she and only she could do. "If I go, then afterwards, will we assist the craft?" "Of course." He stepped away as he said it, ostensibly to check the Dan flags being picked out by the searchlight now, but for sure too, to avoid acknowledging the concession. Hermione read him and considered. While they were here, at least they were not moving away from the flimsy craft and the people clinging to it. She would go down. Apart from the skipper and 2 of his family, the crew of the fishing boat, the Helena, were all women. It had not been easy. Some in Folkestone, husbands, boyfriends, civic leaders, would be quick to gloat if their business failed. Behind doors, they would wave aprons at them in derision. Women cannot fish. 3 of the female crew were around her now, asking, and she told them yes, she was going down. The regular questions came upon their faces. How do you do it? How do you stay underwater so long and without equipment? How do you even see down there? It's like you have a superpower. Admiration edged with bewilderment. Hermione shrugged all this off. They gathered tight around her as she shed her clothes. Then she slipped overboard. Descending the murk, she cleaved the water. Her eyes made their adjustments automatically. She found the snag net and cut the heavy-weighted lead line. It had caught on cliff rock. She freed it and spliced it in a temporary repair, then thrust back up. They were waiting at the starboard edge. The few men turned away as she raised her arms, and the women called her out and clothed her. Dressed, still dripping, she crossed the top deck to the wheelhouse and ducked her head in. It's free now, she told the skipper. The skipper turned. We can haul up? She nodded, yes. As the net came sprawling over the sides at the stern, Hans watched the fish sluice and spool into the steel catch trough. Its drains flooded and gulped. Hermione looked out, across starboard, into the gloom. The lights from the raft were still there, but 5 or 6 where before there had been 9 or 10, and those handful dimmed. The raft was close enough now that they could see things, that some were bailing water with buckets, that a series of polystyrene cube floats had been lost from its undercarriage, that the raft was listing, that they had no life jackets. They were tall, obsidian figures, folded into the raft's crevices, many arms and legs linked and braced, as if by fixing their limbs together they could keep the raft itself from breaking up. On board the Helena, the net was full. Hermione heard the skipper fire up the engines and watched the churn of dark new waves. But the Helena didn't pull in the direction she'd expected. Instead, it began putting distance between itself and the raft. But he'd given his word. She crossed the deck to the wheelhouse again, flung open the door. You promised! The skipper half turned. Stress blotches patched his face. The eyes that rose to meet hers were a trough of trickery and evasion. The owners, he said, they picked up my message and their lawyer sent a direct order to clear out, not to get involved because it's the border forces work and we would be liable if anything went wrong. But you promised. I'm sorry. Come on, Harry, look! She was pointing through the wheelhouse rear window. They both could see, she made him see, that the raft's planks had worked apart. The now 4-meter swell had wrenched the stays holding the contraption together. Now its starboard was fully in the water, the remaining floats askew, its deck slowly submerging. An arm disappeared. The figures now all gone into the water's maw. The skipper pushed the engines, making away. Cursing him, Hermione fled the wheelhouse. If you won't... No, Hermione, no! The skipper cursed, threw the engines into idle. Hermione ran to stern. The women saw her, called out, the danger of the engine blades turning. But she was overboard in a moment, gone into the waters. The skipper stood on deck and yelled Hermione's name amid a stream of curses. She's gone deep, he asked them. It was an attempt at innocence as much as inquiry. The women were not fooled. They looked on each other. They'd been gutting. They had fishhooks. Don't be stupid, he said to them as they advanced. Use the radio then, one of them said to him. At least radio. They went with him into the wheelhouse, knocked off the autopilot. The Helena circled and its searchlight swept the waters, yet nothing human heaved up from the dark weight of water. Only planks and a twist of rope caught in a vortex and pulled swiftly back down. After 30 minutes, with the tidal waters surging ever stronger and the border patrol boat cutting across and flashing them a desist, reluctantly the women agreed. The skipper set course back to port. Immersed in the deep, Hermione cleaved water, touched the pink sand of the seabed. She found 5 souls there, limbs loose, clothing sucked off by the waves, their lungs taking in water. They were still alive, if barely, resigned to death. She took one into her arms and pressed him close until she could feel the crusted sores of her shoulders and inner arm splintering, the crust splitting off and attaching to the one she hugged. She found his lips. He kicked as she pressed the insides of her lips right into his, felt her crust there breaking again, knew they were attaching to him. She let go. He had enough of her now to breathe water, and she saw the welts spread into his arms, his shoulders, become sores, become mini gills. He could extract oxygen now from the water, at least for a while, until the crust fell away. She saw his eyes focus, his mind absorb the marvel. Then he looked back at her in wonder, how he was not dead, how he was somehow breathing. She pulled 2 others to her and did the same, the wincing hug, the kiss, the break of her scars and their adhesion to them. 3 was all she had managed when rip currents took the others, but 3 was 3, and one was a child whose hand she now holds. One of the 2 men goes to talk, gesturing with a hand. She says to him, "Talking is overrated. It's okay. You're okay. You don't need your mouth to talk any longer." "How?" they both ask. "There is oxygen in water," she explains. "Think how fish survives. I have this too, in my arms, inside of my lips. I broke some of myself off, pressed the crusts into you both. Now you can too. Breathe. At least while the crust sticks to you, which is long enough to reach the ship." "Our boat up there?" "No, one down here. Link hands. We'll walk the seabed together and reach it. We have time. We're in another time." They don't understand, but they walk. Others pass them by, sunken African figures, tall and dark-skinned like them. More questions spill. She smiles. "Africans, from slavery times, from the Henry Lachelles. They call themselves the Blue Devils. They're on their own journey. But, yes, it's confusing. Down here we are in sea time. There is no past here. Everything is now, for as long as you can breathe. For as long as the cells on your arms and mouth keep working. Then you must emerge into air. Let's keep on. We have time." They walk on, and the 2 men turn to each other and talk, and one bends down and picks up the girl, though there is no need because she walks more than fine. She is the strongest of the 3. The girl kisses the man who bent to pick her up and calls him daddy. Hermione feels the switch of the currents. She leads them round an unstable sandbar, circles the seabed's cliff, then descends the sloping bed where the press of water is greatest. The ship is there, and they all 4 see it. The battle on board is still raging as memory has passed, submerged in the waters of oblivion, yet right there, right before them. The rafters point, query. "They are Hermione's. They're from the ship, the Hermione. They're here for you." "But those clothes, what happened to time? This is 200 years before now, isn't it?" "Then, now, watch. You see the woman there? This is Hermione. This is who I was, who I am." Hermione had sneaked on board and had passed muster. Captain Piggott never noticed. She was the lightest, most agile of 3 sailmates, and at trials after 3 other topmost sailors had jumped ship, had been assigned with 2 others working out on the topsail yardarm, scurrying in the wind to battle sailcloth. They were young for topmasters, and the captain declared them boys, and henceforth to be referred to as such and paid as such. She was boy 3, or boys 1, 2 and 3, and she was fine up there, strong and skilled enough after 2 years on ships, well able to tough the slap of canvas, the rope slip and burn, the howl and tug of blistering wind with boys 1 and 2, David and Edwin. The skipper's caprice was their death certificate. "You're too slack, too fucking slow. This is no floating republic. This ship shall be run by my authority and my authority only. Who holds down last to deck tonight will be flogged." Fear spread among the 3 topmasters. They huddled and conspired. For Hermione, it was not only the prospect of ripped flesh, but also the danger of her secret revealed. The 2 others knew this and had sworn to secrecy. Being lighter, she was always assigned furthest out the topmast, and so would be slowest down. It looked grim for Hermione, but the boys made a pact to leap as one and trust in God. At the captain's shout, they leapt. It was down to God now and the wind to decide who landed last, who would be flogged. God himself was capricious that day. Their desperate leap and fall onto deck from the topsail yardarm amused the captain. That the sailors reported all 3 dead from the fall was proclaimed the just punishment of slackers. The captain had them thrown overboard. Down boy 3 went into the black and airless. There is a point at the cusp of death where the body surrenders, and all creatures who have seen this recognize it. Boy Hermione was at this door, limbs askew, lungs no longer burning but filling. When she felt her envelopment, some creature come to feed on her. She didn't resist. The octopus's tentacles wrapped around her swiftly, suckers attached, and she felt herself being crushed, waited for the life spirit to ebb away. The octopus had its mating arm in her face now, thrusting into the cavern of her mouth, attaching to the lip membranes there. She sensed some fillip spread from her lips and mouth outwards across her shoulders into her arms, saw welts rise, become small suckers, crusted gills, and realized somehow she was breathing. Now the octopus was gone, shooting away, trailing iridescent purple-pink tentacles. She watched it, a species she'd never seen before, and saw it stop, slowly sink, fall inertly to the ocean bed, stirring ripples of sand there. Its gift of life to her had been its death spasm. In a heave of long, boy Hermione broke the surface. The battle on the Hermione was still raging. She heard the cries, saw gunflash, heard the slash and thuck of sabres. She swam to stern and crew saw her through ropes, hauled her over the gunwale. She learned from them the captain was dead, hacked, slashed and finished, and the ship now a republic under crew's orders. That night on the Hermione they celebrated. Cheers rang out. We are all Hermiones! All hail the mutiny! Only in the dead of night, when the grog and revels were being slept off by the others, did boy Hermione allow herself tears. For boy 1 and 2, for all the world's fallen boys. When boy Hermione woke and turned to look across the sea at port, she saw obsidian bodies swimming towards the ship. She hailed them, ran out ropes. Come with us. They have broken the surface of the waters now and see ropes being thrown for them from the ship. I can't, I have a child. I can be your child. Hermione cups the child's ebony face. I wish, she says to her, and gives her a kiss. Now go, swim across, and they'll take you on board. You'll sail with them. Where you land I don't know, but it will be somewhere, and at some time. Now, beyond now, before now, I can't say, but you will have your allocated time here on earth. So go, sail with them. I will be with you, I will never leave you, and if you want to see me, you will see me. We'll remember you. Go, I must leave now. She kisses the girl a final time, then dips underwater. The child was inconsolable, and the social worker, trained as he was in assuaging the irrational, however deeply felt, fears of small children forcibly separated from their loved ones, was sympathetic but firm. Your mother is with the nurses now. She's in the best of care. She'll be ready to see you soon. Not now, but soon. No, 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 said the child. She's with Shippy's Head. She's with the ghost ships and the slave ship. She's down there, and the octopus has bit her, and the octopus has died. And now she will die too if I don't find her. Safia, stop this nonsense. This kind man is trying to help you. He's trying to tell you something. Will you listen? Take your hands from over your ears. Hush, Nana. The grandmother turned to the social worker. I'm sorry. She has a vivid imagination, and combined with the stress and her sleepless nights, it makes her sometimes uncontrollable. It is well, the social worker said. Inshallah, she will heal, as will her mother. You are the legal next of kin? She is your daughter or daughter-in-law? Yes. The social worker made a note on his pad, then stroked a stray tuft of hair from Safia's forehead. She was sprawled in one of the counselling room's orange upholstered chairs. Your mother's fine. Sleep, child. Sleep deep. Safia continued muttering, even as her eyes closed. The grandmother leaned forwards and whispered to the social worker. What I don't understand is, how did she know her mother was in trouble? She can't view the sea from her bedroom window, not at night, and her mother doesn't take her phone. It's not unusual, the social worker replied softly. She'll be reading signs in how her mother holds herself. The onset of the malady, the illness, there'll be small tells that the child picks up without even knowing, and then her nightmare comes. They say she was dragged out of the sea? Yes, your daughter was pulled from the sea. The coastal ambulance team know her. She's done this before. There is no suicide ideation, they say, only delusion. She'll be in the unit for another few days for her own safety. They are running a few blood tests. Now, as a precaution, the social worker took the grandmother's hand. Don't worry, it will all work out. The mother nodded. The social worker went to say something, hesitated, stopped his tongue. It's okay, said the grandmother. You can tell me, my heart is leather, remove the stones from your mouth. I shouldn't say this, I could be sacked. But I overheard the doctors talking about your daughter. I taped it, it was so strange. They were not the usual doctors. They were from one of the Prime Minister's initiatives to distract from his terrible policies. They belonged to DIRT, DIRT, the Deviant Investigation and Research Task Force. The grandmother grimaced. What were they saying? I'm not sure. It didn't sound well, but here, listen, I don't understand it fully myself. The social worker pulled out his phone, selected the file, and pressed play. Two voices could be heard amid a scatter of bleeps and the clack of a keyboard. The first voice was even, conscientious. The second applied a spirit. Her mitochondrial DNA, it came back saying she's 1% cephalopod. Octopus, should we dial that in? No, just note it in the file. Probably a lab error. And her mouth cavity contained what looked like tiny gills on the buccal mucosa. A similar feature on the inner arms and shoulders. Do we phone those through? Look, we are all descended from fish, right? Let's just do this job and no more. File photos if we have to, but then be done with it. Let's not create more work for ourselves than we need to. Don't feed the monster, okay? Coffee? Yeah, sugar, one sugar, okay. The file sent. God, I hate this job.